And hello and welcome to our live webcast special Forewarn Monsoon 2017. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Brode, along with meteorologists Jeff Beamish, John Patrick, and traffic reporter Melanie Hunter. Today, June 15, is the official start of the monsoon here in Arizona. It, of course, runs through September 30th. But first, we have to get through the heat, and we need it to build up these storms, but heat can be deadly. In fact, it's the #1 weather-related killer nationally. Last year alone, 39 children lost their lives to heat stroke due to being left in a hot car. And most of the time, it's a loving, responsible parent that unknowingly left that child in the car.
As every minute passed, I was freaking out more and more.
It was a scary moment for Andrea Mata when she turned her back and heard the car door lock with her 2-year-old daughter sound asleep in the back.
Luckily, the AC was on full blast, but unfortunately, I couldn't get into my truck. I tried a clothes hanger, a stick, anything I could to get wedged in between the door to unlock it.
30 minutes had passed on a hot summer day, with her cell phone also locked in the car.
Finally, I panicked. I grabbed a good-sized rock and I threw it at the front passenger side.
A new bill passed by the state of Arizona this year protects Good Samaritans who use reasonable force to remove a child or pet from a locked motor vehicle. But it's not as easy as you think. It took Andrea 5 tries to break her window. But now that she works at National Glass in Midtown Tucson, she's picked up some tips if she absolutely had to do it again.
So if you put a screwdriver in between the glass and kind of just shake it out, you should be able to crack it and get it broken easier. Or if you don't have a screwdriver, just impact any corners that will get it to crack it.
Fortunately for Andrea, she left the AC on, but what if she turned it off? We're going to put this to the test, see how quickly the car heats up. We have an experiment. You see the indoor temperature, comfortable 81 degrees. Maybe you ran a couple of errands. Outdoor temperature, very hot, 109 degrees. Now we're going to see what happens when we turn the car off, see how quickly it warms up. All right, it's been 10 minutes since we started our experiment. Time to get a check to see what the outdoor temperature is relative to the indoor temperature. Outdoor temperature not fluctuating too much at 109, but look at the inside of the car now, almost 115 degrees after 10 minutes. Now it is 115 degrees. Keep in mind, 10 minutes ago, this car was just at 80 degrees. We'll check it again in a few more minutes. Well, it's been 20 minutes now. We've been babysitting the thermometer here. We did see it as high as 125 degrees just after 20 minutes, but it got so hot that it actually broke our display. Either way, 125 degrees, way too hot to leave any kids or pets in the car.
My personal experience, I have seen the dizzy, lightheadedness, vomiting.
Tucson Fire Captain Andy Skaggs says TFD responded to 282 kids locked in cars last year. 31 of those were classified as in distress. Skaggs says don't take matters into your own hands. Don't panic. Help is typically less than 5 minutes away with a simple call to 911.
Try to stay as calm as you can. Accidents happen. You're not a bad parent. If it happens to you, we can fix it.
All right, heat can be a killer, but there are some untruths when it comes to hot temperatures. Here's some of the most common heat myths and why they simply aren't true. All right, myth #1, heat isn't that dangerous. Wrong. Heat is a top weather-related killer, more than flooding, hurricanes, and lightning combined. Myth #2, you can't get sunburn when it's cloudy. Actually, about 80% of ultraviolet rays shine through when it's cloudy. Myth #3, you burn more calories in warm weather. You will sweat more, but you won't burn more calories. You actually burn more calories when it's cold outside. Myth #4, there's no such thing as a, quote, dry heat. In fact, humidity makes those feel-like temperatures so much hotter. If the temperature outside is 110 degrees and the humidity is 30%, the heat index is 122 degrees. And finally, myth #5, air conditioning makes you catch colds. A dry, cold environment during the summer can dry out your nasal passages, making it more susceptible to infection, but don't blame that AC. All right, so when does the monsoon really start? When will we see those daily afternoon thunderstorms? The determining factor is based more on science than on a calendar date. News 4 Tucson meteorologist John Patrick has more on how those monsoon storms get going.
Thanks, Matt. Well, as you know, monsoon literally means a seasonal shift of the winds, and that's exactly what happens through the summer months. You know, through most of the year here in southern Arizona, we get our winds out of the west or northwest, but as we start to heat up, a ridge of high pressure starts to build up over into the Four Corners areas, and what that does is it actually shifts those winds out of the south or southeast, and that eventually opens up the moisture pipelines from northern sections of Mexico, including the Gulf of California and the Gulf of Mexico, and eventually that moisture turns into our daily round of afternoon storms, which generally start to get going over the higher elevations, and they track from the east to the west, eventually into the valley floors and hopefully into the city of Tucson to give us some of those good soaking rains. But this isn't the only setup that we see throughout the monsoon. That ridge of high pressure isn't static throughout the entire season. Sometimes it meanders over into the Great Basin, which is why we call this setup the Great Basin High. And what happens with this one, we start to see those storms kind of develop over the Mogollon Rim. And once those storms get going, they try to push in off those higher elevations all the way down here into southern Arizona. Now, these storms have been known to pack quite a punch and bring us some of those strong damaging wind gusts throughout the afternoon and evening hours. We have another setup as well. If you've lived in Tucson since about 2006, maybe you remember this one. This one's called the Trapping High. And I say maybe you remember this one in 2006 because this is the setup that led to some of that massive flooding from Sabino Canyon and down into the Rillito as well. It caused millions of dollars in damage. But what happens here is that this ridge of high pressure splits into two centers, and we get an upper level disturbance that gets trapped up in between these two systems. And kind of what happens is it starts moving very slowly, and we can get day after day of storms, which leads to that massive flooding. Now, the last one that we look at here is actually known as the transitional period. So by September, you know, we've kind of come full circle. That ridge of high pressure that we talk about throughout the entire season eventually kind of gets pushed off to the east by an approaching cold front. Now, what happens is we get these storms develop along that cold front, and they push off from the west to the east, and these storms can actually pack quite a punch as well. They've been known to drop a lot of hail and bring us those strong damaging wind gusts. But after these storms move through, dry air starts to filter in behind that front, essentially shutting down the monsoon for the year. But again, this doesn't generally happen until September, maybe even early October. So here's to some good soaking rains until then. From the TechNet Center, we'll send it back to you, Matt.
I love the science behind that. All right, before the monsoon storms hit, first responders make sure they're ready. Each year they train at different locales to put themselves to the test before the real deal comes along. News 4 Tucson photojournalist Ricky Vasquez takes us behind the scenes.
Running washes are a very dangerous part of our monsoons. If you've lived in Tucson long enough, you've seen how quickly they get going. But also you look around and you see how beautiful our monsoons are. That's one of the things Tucsonans, I think, look forward to the most is those monsoon rains and looking out their windows and kind of seeing that storm come down. You get mesmerized by it, but don't get complacent by it. The washes are going to rise very quickly. If your car has stalled out because of the water, the chances of you getting out and getting into that water, you're now going to be swept downstream. You need to call 911. Let them know that you're in an emergency and you need help immediately. Watch the water level. What's the water level doing? Can you watch it rising quickly? Is your car starting to move? These are things that you want to look for. If you're out for a jog or you're out for a run and it starts to rain, well, that's your first sign. Get out of the wash. You shouldn't be in there. If it's raining or you can see it raining in the mountains, the wash is not the place to run. Find a trail up on the ground, you know, up the trails that run alongside the wash. Find one of those trails and run on those. It sounds cliche, the turn around, don't drown, but those simple words mean so much more. Turn around, don't drown means your family gets to enjoy dinner with you tonight. It's not worth it.
All right, we've had a sneak peek of what's to come with a few isolated thunderstorms the first week of June. Now the city is preparing for the main event in the coming months and weeks, beginning with Operation Splash. Here's News 4 Tucson's John Patrick with the details.
Every year, the city prepares for the upcoming monsoon with Operation Splash, setting out barricades to warn of flooded roadways. But new to the program this year is a way to keep your home safe from those same floodwaters. The Tucson Department of Transportation is busy preparing around 150 low-water crossings with over 500 barricades, ready to be deployed at a moment's notice as soon as flash flooding hits Tucson. The goal is to make sure motorists do not attempt to enter flooded roadways, putting themselves and first responders at risk. With major midtown flooding during monsoon 2016, TDOT distributed close to 30,000 sandbags. That sandbag pilot program was so well received by the public, it's now a part of Operation Splash, with sandbags being made available for this year's monsoon at the Tucson Rodeo Grounds.
The sandbags will be here all season. Now, we're only going to be distributing them when severe weather is forecasted. It won't be a 24/7 operation, but when severe weather is forecasted, we'll put out a media release that the distribution site is open.
There will be a 10 sandbag limit per vehicle. Stay with KVOA to find out exactly when they will be made available from the rodeo grounds. I'm John Patrick, News 4 Tucson.
All right, John, let's move on to some electricity. Arizona ranks 29th when it comes to lightning strikes per square mile, with over 600,000 strikes a year, and most of those, not surprisingly, well, they come during the monsoon. Here's John Patrick again with more.
During monsoon 2015, this used to be 30-foot tall palm tree was struck by lightning. It destroyed electronics in surrounding homes and blew out multiple windows in this duplex, sending glass everywhere.
I thought that an airplane from the Air Force Base had crashed in the neighborhood. That's how loud it was.
Stephen Campbell was on his computer the moment lightning struck just feet from his east side home, sending a jolt through the entire neighborhood.
It was loud, and everybody freaked out, and we all came out here, and then we saw that there was a palm tree on fire. The top of the palm tree was on fire.
Not only was the thunder deafening, but the charge was costly.
Blew out all the windows, blew out everyone's computers. Not a good day. I had to get a new computer. He had to fix his windows.
Right now we have 125,000 strokes across the U.S.
Ron Hawley with Vizsla on Tucson's south side tracks real-time lightning data across the globe. Millions of strokes a day. Right here in Arizona, 2/3 of the annual 600,000 lightning strikes come in July and August alone.
In 2 months we get lightning frequency equivalent to probably what it is in Florida. However, our season doesn't start for a couple more weeks. If it lasted as long as it does in Florida, we'd be rivaling what Florida has.
Hawley says the number of homes that get struck in the U.S. is on the order of several 100,000 a year, and it's one of the lightning myths that you're 100% protected inside your home.
When lightning hits that power pole outside or directly hits the house, you can be very seriously injured. So you don't want to be in contact with wiring and plumbing when the storm is in the area.
Inside your house is still one of the safest places to be, the other a vehicle. But it's another myth that those rubber tires are what's keeping you safe. It's actually the metal cage around you. Once lightning strikes the roof of your car,
one of the next things it's going to find the axle, and what's the axle have connected to it? It's a tire. And what's going to happen to the tire when 50,000 degrees go through it? It's going to blow. The tires had nothing to do with it. It was a byproduct of an effect of the lightning strike, not the cause of the safety.
The biggest lightning myth of all, it never strikes the same place twice. Simply not true, especially if the object is tall, pointy, and isolated, like your neighbor's palm tree.
I hope it doesn't happen again. It was kind of scary and a little bit expensive for everybody.
From the east side, I'm John Patrick, News 4 Tucson.
All right, and here are some tips to keep you safe inside your home during a lightning storm we got for you. Never touch wiring during a storm. Corded phones, well, they're dangerous. Lightning travels through telephone wires and can kill you. Cell phones are safe. Wait to use any plumbing like showers or sinks. Plumbing does conduct electricity. Unplug expensive electronics, including TVs, stereos, and computers, and don't play video games that are connected to the TV. Another danger from lightning: wildfires. Just in the last month alone, we've seen at least a dozen wildfires in southern Arizona sparked by lightning. The dry, tall grass covering much of Cochise and Santa Cruz counties is easily ignited by lightning. And until the monsoon rains begin, the chances of more wildfires, well, it'll remain pretty high. We can tell you when and where thunderstorms are going to hit, but predicting winds and dust storms during the monsoon is a different kind of science. A science being studied right here at the University of Arizona. News 4 Tucson's meteorologist Jeff Beamish has more.
The cutting edge of forecast technology, it lives in a 13-by-8 room on the University of Arizona campus. This is Mike Leuthold. He's a meteorologist running a computer model that can predict thunderstorm winds and dust storms up to 36 hours in advance. What starts in a server room.
These are all individual computers, but they are all connected together to act like one big one.
Ends up as a bunch of numbers.
That was only 1 hour.
Converted into this map.
When you see a wind like this, I don't care how wet or dry the soil is. If you get 50 or 60 mile an hour winds in the summertime, you're going to get a dust storm.
It's one of several runs the University of Arizona weather model pumps out daily.
So on the right-hand screen here are the outflow winds from the thunderstorms, and here is Arizona, and the higher wind speeds are in the warmer colors.
What makes it work better than the American and European models?
Those models do not forecast individual thunderstorms, where this model does, and that's the big difference, is those are very coarse resolution.
Also, it has a better idea of the Sky Islands and how they impact storms. This attention to detail, helping inform the public and utility companies like TEP and the solar arrays for APS.
They have a number of solar production plants out here in southwest Arizona, and if they know the winds are coming in advance, some of the systems they can tilt their arrays so they're flat and not so susceptible to the strong winds.
A perfect science? Mike's the first to admit it's not.
And it stays cloudy till noon, and the model's clear. You get all that heat in the model, you get thunderstorms build up, and in real life you get nothing.
But he's aiming to increase the model's accuracy from 1 or 2 days to upwards of 5. And here it is, the University of Arizona model, predicting temperature, thunderstorms, and wind. Here's an example of that wind forecast, which goes out to roughly 3 days in advance. If you want to check out this model, we've got a link on our website. It's yours right now, KVOA.com. I'm meteorologist Jeff Beamish, News 4 Tucson.
Thank you, Jeff. It seems to happen every summer. High winds or microbursts knocking down power lines all around Pima County. If you see down lines, call 911 to report them. If power lines come into contact with your vehicle, remain inside. By stepping out of the vehicle, your body can become the pathway for electricity to reach the ground, causing severe injury or electrocution. Use a cell phone if available to call for help. All right, high winds turn into blowing dust on our highways often, especially Interstate 10, drastically reducing visibility in a matter of seconds. John Patrick has more on what the Arizona Department of Transportation is doing to make it safer for motorists.
Milepost 219 to 209 is well known as a dangerous stretch of I-10 between Tucson and Phoenix. You add in a dust storm during the monsoon and it can turn downright deadly.
It gets a little bit hairy. You slow down. You definitely take your time.
Just the wind buffeting is kind of scary, the lack of visibility.
These Arizona drivers know how frightening it can be to get caught up in a dust storm along I-10. The last dust-related fatality to occur on this 10-mile stretch of road was in 2013.
It's very sickening to see how many people die when they just could have actually just pulled over the side of the road.
The Arizona Department of Transportation studied the dust-related crashes between Tucson and Phoenix from 2010 to 2015 and found some shocking results.
There were 83 dust-related crashes between Tucson and Phoenix. 42 of those were within a half a mile of this spot.
And that spot is right around milepost 214. It's not hard to see why. Miles of open desert and dirt just waiting to be picked up by thunderstorm winds.
But when you consider in the entire 100+ miles between Phoenix and Tucson, half of the crashes are right here, it gives you an idea that this is where we need to focus our efforts.
Now armed with a $54 million grant, not only will I-10 be widened in some areas, but a first-of-its-kind dust detection zone is in the works. It's a dual detection system of sensors and cameras, along with a special radar that will alert ADOT when a dust storm strikes that deadly stretch of road.
Once we detect that there's dust, based on those sensors, we will have variable speed limits to slow drivers down to a safer speed. We'll have electronic message boards to get that information to drivers right away.
Bids are opening soon for the project and construction is expected to begin this fall. However, it will take about 2 years to complete, meaning it won't be operational until after monsoon 2019. But even with all of that technology, ADOT will still be relying on you, the driver.
Our primary effort here is safety. We need drivers to see there's a sign that says dust storm ahead. There are speed limit signs that say slow down. I need to slow down.
From Picacho, John Patrick, News 4 Tucson.
All right, so remember, in a dust storm, pull aside, stay alive. If you encounter a dust storm and cannot avoid driving into it, here are some tips that may help you, well, avoid an accident. Pull off the road as far as you can, safely do so. Turn off the headlights and taillights. Put your vehicle in park and take your foot off the brake. Flash flooding is not only dangerous, it can cause millions of dollars worth of damage to your home and property. If you live in a flood-prone area, have an evacuation plan ready. Store materials like sandbags, plywood, and plastic sheeting for protection from floodwaters and to make repairs after a storm. Also check into flood insurance coverage. Flood losses are typically not covered under normal homeowners insurance policies. Many homeowners won't forget the monsoon storm that hit July of last year. It caused heavy flooding right in Midtown Tucson. News 4 Tucson traffic anchor Melanie Hunter caught up with a homeowner who was hit hard. Now how he is doing a year later.
This street near Country Club in Fort Lowell looked a lot different July 1st of last year. Heavy rains turned the street into a river with floating debris. It caused Seth Tylucky's home to flood. Now he's worried for this monsoon.
There was like a couch floating down there.
Seth Tylucky remembers when last July's monsoon storm hit his Midtown street.
It was amazing and horrible at the same time.
The street could not handle the amount of water, and it overflowed onto his property.
There was just water coming through all of the doors.
14 inches of water filled his house. It's the house he's been in since the 1950s. He thinks the city could do more to fix drainage issues on streets like his.
When it rains, the water comes down and it ends up, the majority of it, on Flanwell here.
We addressed the issue with Tucson Department of Transportation Director Daryl Cole.
The water generally flows from here.
He says historically the city has relied on washes and streets to move storm water.
We haven't put in, over the many years, a lot of underground storm sewer. Over the last 40 or 50 years, that's not been a priority to the development community.
Fixing some of these drainage issues is on TDOT's radar for current and future construction projects.
We are working on watersheds, and we are working with to identify projects with the flood control district in order to try to address some of these issues as well, to take some of these folks out of what we call the floodplain.
1 year later, Tylucky still has sandbags stacked around his house. Not much has changed. He says he doesn't have the money to fix his home, but he did get flood insurance. He hopes this monsoon will be different.
But I hope it can be divided up all over instead of.
Tylucky says he plans to get more sandbags to stack around his house. I'm Melanie Hunter, News 4 Tucson.
Okay, and a reminder that might just save your life. Driving around barricades is illegal and also dangerous. Never drive through flooded roadways. Turn around. Don't drown. Don't let children play near storm drains or washes. If your vehicle is caught in rising water, leave it and go to higher ground. 10 inches of water can float cars, vans, even SUVs and trucks. When in doubt, wait it out or find a safer route. When you watch a forewarned weathercast, it may seem simple and, well, straight to the point, but the process of putting it all together can be quite complicated. John Patrick shows us how our storm chances are figured out.
Well, if you've ever wondered how we come up with our forecasts every day, it starts right here on the roof of the National Weather Service office on the University of Arizona campus, and with one of these. At 4 a.m. and 4 p.m. each day, meteorologists across the country are launching weather balloons up.
Ready?
Ready.
Let's go.
What comes down? Vital information for a meteorologist to make an accurate forecast.
Basic information, temperature, relative humidity, wind speed and direction. Those components are so important to the weather models, and when they change, that's why we do this twice a day, because they are constantly changing.
By gathering moisture, temperature, and wind data, the radiosonde paints a picture of what's going on at different levels of the atmosphere. That information is then downloaded into a confusing mess of lines and dashes known as a skew-T for the meteorologist to decipher.
I would say more or less 99% of what happens in those weather balloon launches goes into the day-to-day forecast.
And because you don't care how many joules per kilogram are out there, it's Jeff Bemis' job to take this and turn it into this, a clear and concise forecast.
You can boil down a skew-T diagram into 3 elements: energy, moisture, and steering winds. And from that checklist, we can tell you whether it's going to be a big day for the monsoon or whether storms will be more missed than hit.
Even armed with all this information, Mother Nature can still be tough to predict.
Gives us a good indication of what may transpire throughout the day, but like anything in the atmosphere, there's no hard and fast rule.
And in case you were wondering what actually happens to these things, well, the balloon eventually disintegrates, and it's estimated that 1 out of every 100 radiosondes is found and returned to the National Weather Service. I'm John Patrick, News 4 Tucson.
If you do find one, you can get a reward as well. All right, if your power does go out during a storm, here's what you still need to know. Use your cell phone. Cordless phones don't work without electricity. Turn off electric appliances that were on before power was lost. Leave one light on as an indicator for when power is restored. Keep refrigerator and freezer doors closed. Food will stay fresh for up to 8 hours. During a thunderstorm, turn off the air conditioner. Power surges from lightning can overload units, leading to costly repair bills. The monsoon may bring much needed rain, but it also brings mosquitoes. Here's some quick tips to help you avoid those pests from John Patrick.
With the monsoon comes more rain, more standing water, and more mosquitoes. Here's a few tips to keep you from itching and scratching during the months ahead. Know mosquito habits. Most mosquito species are active during dusk and dawn hours. Mosquitoes prefer much cooler and humid conditions as opposed to that direct sunlight and the heat of the summer day. During the day, they hide in dark places like plants and trees. Know what attracts mosquitoes. This is actually the interesting part. There's about 3 main mosquito attractants. First of all, mosquitoes are extremely attracted to CO2. Of course, you can't stop breathing when you're out and about, but you can limit your outdoor exercise because the more CO2 you release, the easier it will be for those mosquitoes to find you. Secondly, those mosquitoes are highly attracted to lactic acid. That's a substance that's released by our bodies when we sweat. Another excuse not to exercise, right? And finally, mosquitoes are attracted to dark and bright clothing. So if you know you're going to be spending time outdoors, better choose light colored clothing, preferably which covers your entire body. And of course, take action. You should obviously use repellent if you're going to be spending time outdoors, and make sure that you drain all of the standing water around your house. That serves as a breeding ground for mosquitoes. From the TechNet Center, I'm John Patrick, News 4 Tucson.
All right, and it's not only mosquitoes. The monsoon rains also bring out yet another critter. While this one seems harmless to humans, it can be very dangerous, even deadly to your 4-legged family members. It's the Colorado river toad, sometimes called the Sonoran toad, and News 4 Tucson photojournalist Ricky Vasquez has a look.
People that lived here all their life or moved here, they're familiar with rattlesnakes. They know that they need to take their dogs through snake avoidance training. But the thing is, every year, what people don't realize that these toads come out. They're called Colorado river toads, or the other name for them is Sonoran toad. They can kill dogs just as fast as a rattlesnake. So it can be prevented. One of the ways of preventing them is to snake and toad proof your yard. And that's like screening around the frames of your gates and making sure all the drain holes are screened off. The other way too is there's classes that our company puts on, and there's plenty of other companies around actually does what they call toad avoidance training.
If your dog has approached a toad and licked that toad, what you're going to see is that the dog's gums have gone from a nice healthy pink to a really dark maroon color, and the dog begins to pant as the toxin drives the body temperature up. You can put your finger in your dog's mouth and you can feel that toxin. It's really sticky and gross. You want to take a warm, wet washcloth and rinse the mouth. Once you've got the toxin off the gum line, you've actually solved the problem. The dog's body temp should begin to fall.
The number one thing I would tell people to prepare themselves for the toad season is to make sure that their yard is protected.
All right, on to a more fun topic. The monsoon storms do produce some dangerous and scary situations, but they also are the perfect backdrop for area photographers, and John Patrick got behind the lens with one of the best.
I think I just got that one. Just got that one.
For Tucson photographer Greg McCown, the monsoon is all about catching that split-second strike of lightning.
But the lightning at night is just spectacular. It's like a free fireworks show.
Most storm-chasing photographers know a lot has to come together to get that perfect strike.
It's a combination of skill, knowing kind of where to go and where to be, and mixing it with a foreground, a little bit of camera knowledge, and then a little bit of luck of hoping that lightning hits where you want it to.
For McCown, everything came together last August when he captured this shot of a lightning bolt right through the center of a rainbow. For him, taking pictures is a labor of love, but if you capture that once-in-a-lifetime moment, a lot can change.
I could not keep up. I literally had like a second job at night just taking orders and filling those orders and sending off prints.
It's monsoon storms like this that keep photographers addicted and on the hunt for the next best shot.
I spend hours chasing all over. I mean, I've driven all the way to Wilcox, down to Sonoita, and then back up to Ina Road.
I'm John Patrick, News 4 Tucson.
All right, and remember, you can stay up to date on Monsoon 2017 24/7 using your smartphone. The News 4 Weather and Traffic app is in your online store for Apple and also Android. All right, well, thanks for joining us. A special will be available for replay within 30 minutes, and be sure to stay with News 4 Tucson for complete coverage of Monsoon 2017. For meteorologists John Patrick and Jeff Beamish and traffic reporter Melanie Hunter, I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Brode.